So last week I was talking about places where I get inspiration for my paintings. I realized after I had made the video that there was some stuff that I had forgotten to bring up. So I thought that it might be good to just do a part two to that video and talk about some of the other places where I get inspiration from. So in the last video, I had talked about different books and I talked about songs and poetry, and going off of the poetry side of things, sometimes I like to come up with my own poem that will help just create a little more depth to what's available for the painting. So I'm not only creating a painting, I'm not just going to create the frame that the painting goes into, but I'm also going to create something that is kind of a one-off thing that goes with it. So ultimately, someday when somebody buys the painting, there will be a handwritten poem that goes along with it on the back. That is just kind of a fun little Easter egg thing. It's not, it's not really going to add any value to the piece. It's not really going to add anything to it visually, but it's kind of just a cool little thing that I do sometimes for paintings. It's not necessarily going to be great literature because I'm just somebody who appreciates poetry and I like to try my hand at it every once in a while. So for one of the pieces that I'm working on right now, that's exactly what I did. As I created a poem that goes along with it. The study is behind me. I basically wrote a poem about the start to Ragnarok, because the painting was about Fenrir and his sons Skoll and Hati, the dogs that basically chase the sun and the moon around until they finally devour them and Ragnarok starts. So, there's not a whole lot of poetry written about that kind of stuff. There's not something that I'm necessarily going to see that's already created that I'm going to pull inspiration from, but there was a theme, there were characters, there was things out there already that I decided to just kind of mold the work around that way. Another way that I get inspiration often is through objects, like buying skulls, buying, these are just some fake violets that honestly, they look pretty good in a photograph. So it's not super obvious that they're fake unless you're sitting here touching them. I mean, if I get up really close, it's obvious, but when they're farther away and they're lit correctly, they look really nice. Or things like fruit objects are sometimes really nice. I'm going to be starting a new photo shoot to do some new paintings that are going to be based around pomegranates and skulls. There's a lot of symbolism already created for fruits. There's already a lot of symbolism created for flowers. There's symbolism and history behind painting skulls. So there's a lot of different things that you can pull from and mishmash them together to create storylines that way. Pomegranates have been used in paintings for a long time. A lot of times you see, Madonna, Mary holding pomegranates because there's symbolism of life and giving birth, fertility. Skull paintings have been around forever as memento moris or vanitas paintings. Sometimes I like to go to antique stores and look around and just see what's interesting there. Sometimes you can find some really, really cool stuff that will then spark ideas, and then you can just take little things like, looking up flower symbolism. And that might be just that little extra something that if you stick that with it, it creates a more complex image. It creates more complex meaning. And it's not like this massive story, but you can still get across some really interesting ideas. Like I said, I'm going to be doing a photo shoot soon for a couple new paintings. And so like I said, the idea of pomegranates being symbolic of life and of fertility, and then pairing that up with something like a skull, is going to obviously give you this kind of yin yang kind of meaning behind the work. Sometimes it's just really cool to find things that are already around the house. So when I moved into this house, this used to be my grandma's house, and there was a whole bunch of stuff that she had left behind. And so one of the cool things that I had found in the basement was her cake topper from her wedding back in like the 40s. So it already had this really cool bell jar, and it had this great, had the figures were these really great ceramic figures that, you know, obviously dressed as a serviceman, because my grandpa had gotten time off from the war to come home and get married. And so like there you can find some really cool stuff that way. And so I did a painting about this, which then ultimately, because of the couple being kind of confined in this bubble, ended up taking on new meaning when the lockdown occurred. And so it was one of those kind of things where it was almost autobiographical in a way, of my wife and I being kind of stuck in lockdown during this pandemic. So I think that's it this time. There's, you know, hopefully some more ideas for you to find new painting inspiration. So hopefully that helps, and I'll see you next time.